of SQL Server Developer Basic. So I'll introduce a little about myself. My name is Arun Balchandran, and I have been in this industry since 2002. My area is basically C++, C#, C, .NET, that is one area. Second area is SharePoint Portal Server. If you have heard, it's a portal application. And third area is SQL Server development, design, and SQL Server analysis and ETL. So this is my area, reporting also. So this is where I stand, and I have been doing consulting and training on these areas from 2002. Now let's come to this course. This course is basically meant for people who are completely new to SQL Server. There can be two types of crowd. One, people who have been in the IT, but they have not been on the data side and they want to change to the data side. People from non-IT background who want to get into IT background, especially like things like data science, subjects like data science. And you can be a college graduate who just has passed out of the college and want to know SQL Server. So the assumption is that all of you are completely new to SQL Server. If there is some knowledge on data storing tools like Excel, it is good. So this is what we have to keep in mind. Now this session will be having theory aspect and the demo aspect. Exercises you will be given and you can do the exercises. The theory aspect will be there in all the sessions. The demo aspect may not be there in some of the sessions because some of the sessions are purely theoretical. Now the session is 22 hours in duration. And don't worry about the suggested timing. So as of now, the timing is 8:30 to 9:30. So what is the coverage? The aim is you get familiarized with SQL Server. So initially, we will be giving some introduction to how the data flows in business. The main thing today is data, including when you log into a Facebook, starting from when you logged in, how many times you have logged in, what kind of posts you have done. All this is data. So data is a very important aspect, and therefore flow of data in a business is important. So that we will see. And we will see how data which is there in the business is converted to tables just briefly. So this will be the theory session. Once you convert the data into tables, columns, rows, different tables which are connected to each other, we have to look at how to implement them in a tool. There are many tools available in the market. Some of them are DBMS or database management system purely, like the one you have access. Some of them are RDBMS. Access is also RDBMS, but at a very low level. An enterprise level RDBMS we have, or relative database management system. So relational database management system. So here we are talking about how to relate data. Excel is also there. So in Excel also you can have basic storage. So there are many varieties of databases and tools. We are going to see SQL Server. So the first aspect that we will see of SQL Server is how SQL Server has objects and what is the logical connection between those objects. What are these objects? What do they mean? And that is what we will see in the first 1 hour. So at the end of first 1 hour, you will be familiar with what is SQL Server, what is a server, what is a server instance, what is a database, what is a table. So you will be familiar with the structure of SQL Server. The next we do is tables would be there, and these tables have to be created. And when they're created, we have to have first what kind of data type. That you will always be there in any place where you store data except for text files. You will have to specify the data type. So that is called a data constraint. Then we will see how to maintain uniqueness of a particular row in the table using keys. So that is called as identity constraint. And then finally, we will look at business constraint. So identity constraint is also called as entity constraint. And check constraint, the business constraint part of it. What is business constraint? There are certain business rules that you have to implement along with data. Simple example to give is in a bank, you cannot withdraw more than 3 times a day from the ATM. Now, this rule has to be implemented. The one option is to implement it in the application which is there in the ATM machine, or the second is to implement at the level of the data. Here we are talking about implementing these rules at the level of data using check constraint. So at the end of these 3 hours, you will comfortably know how to design tables, how to relate the tables, and how to set certain basic constraints for the data, for the entity, and for the business. Then next, we will move on to T-SQL Basics and DML. So here, we are going to look at how we are going to take the data that is there and how we are going to insert the data into the tables that are created. So in the previous session, you would have created the tables. Now, after creating the table, you will have all the data inserted into the table using certain statements, certain types of statements called DML. Also, they call it as CRUD, or insert, update, and delete. So before that, we understand a language which is specific to Microsoft SQL Server called T-SQL. It is derived from a general language called ANSI SQL. So we will look at what are the constructs of the language which we require to operate or to do DML. DML is data manipulation. We will also see how to create whatever we created in the previous session using the T-SQL language. So T-SQL language can be used for 2 purposes. One, to create tables, to create indexes, to relate tables, to create columns, etc. And it can also be used for insert, update, and delete of data inside the table that is created. And it can also be used for select. So T-SQL as a language has all these usages. So we will be looking at DML purely from the angle of insert, update, and delete. In some places, even select or query is called, the query statement that you give is called as DML only, but we have separated it out. So here we have a separate session on SQL queries. So when we talk about SQL queries, we start with select clause, from clause. And we have sorting and filtering raw data. That is using the where clause. Okay. Okay, sorry, there was a slight break. So we are having sorting and filtering of raw data. So sorting and filtering of raw data, we will be looking at how to sort the data when you're displaying it. We'll be looking at how to filter the raw data using the where clause. So we'll also be looking at how to write queries which give consolidated data, which is called grouping and aggregation of data. So we have the group by clause where you group the data and then you consolidate. You can also consolidate the data without group. So this possibility is there. We will look at both of them. So by the end of the session of SQL Server Basic, you will be in a position to write basic select statement and also consolidate the data. Then we will move on to SQL Server joins. And SQL Server joins, we will be accessing tables and joining the tables which are related to each other. So we will see when you are creating the table, we can relate the two tables using something called as primary key and foreign key. And we will see how to now query across multiple tables. There are different types of joins, and we will look at these joins. So by the end of these 3 hours, you will know how to query data from across multiple tables. Then we have another feature when you are querying the data, which is called subquery. Subquery is writing a query inside a query. This is called subquery. And you have various clauses in the query, like from clause, then where clause, select clause. We will see how to write a query inside each of these clauses. And certain places you can write query which will return the entire table also. And they are called as derived tables, especially in the from clause. Then we will also use a technique called as subqueries, which are correlated to get the data. So all this will be covered. So by the end of this 6 plus 2, 8 hours, you will know how to write basic SQL queries with joins, with subquery. This is the expectation. Then once this is completed, querying the data is what you do when you want to take the data out. But certain operations on the data have to occur. Like for example, when I am pulling out some cash from the ATM, at the backend table, it should go and subtract that much of amount from your balance. And it should enter this data into the table that this much of amount was withdrawn. So the transaction you call, right? The transaction data has to be inserted. So this part has to be done. For this, we have to create a logical flow. And we have to encapsulate this logical set of steps in what is called as a stored procedure. So we will look at stored procedure. This is one aspect. Another aspect is trigger, which is there below. But initially, we will cover the stored procedure. Procedure, it is a set of steps which we have to perform for a particular operation in the business. Like here, we talked about cash withdrawal. Similarly, cash deposit, if you take bank. If you take a store like Reliance, Fresh, etc., we talk about selling. So this is what it is. Then we have cursors and functions. So cursors are ways or mechanisms to go and operate at row level, not at the complete table level. So I want certain operations to be done at every level, for every row. And here cursors are very useful. Then for some calculations, we may want to encapsulate the calculation. It will be complex. You want some data to be returned from the calculation. You have functions. The functions are of two types. First, functions which are already present in SQL Server, which we will be learning as we do data types, and functions that you can create, which are called user-defined functions. Now, for stored procedure, cursor, and function, you require to understand while creating them certain basic T-SQL constructs. T-SQL is a language. Apart from it being used for creating table, inserting, updating data, selecting data, T-SQL is also used to write certain small, simple logic. So it requires certain constructs. So you do have variables. So we look at variables. We will look at the structure, if, then, else. So we have both selection and iteration. Selection is if, then, else. Iteration is by looping. So we will see how you can have both if, then, else, and looping. It is a simple structured language. Then stored procedure, when we come to, we will use this language We will see how to take in parameters, how to take out parameters, how to take return type. We will see how to create stored procedures. Then we have cursors. Cursors, we have already seen what it is, basically at an overview level. So you will understand how to use the cursors. There are different types of cursors, how to use them, access or do some operation row by row. When you write a select statement, it returns a complete set of rows. And within that set of row, you want to do operation row by row. That is called a cursor. Then functions. So this we will do. This will take 5 hours. So at the end of this, you will be able to write functions to create certain complex calculations, cursors to access data row by row. Of course, cursors also have alternatives, but we are going to see how cursor can be used and what is the limitation of the cursor. And then finally, stored procedure also. The last 3 hours is to extend the business rules. So we have said certain business rules are there that I should not allow, more than 1 or more than 3 transactions through ATM in a day. Certain rules can be fulfilled by your check constraints. Like I want to find out that you're not withdrawing more than 2,400 rupees or 25,000 rupees, sorry, from ATM at a time. Check constraint is fine. But if I want to say that whenever there is a withdrawal or a deposit, I want to check how many withdrawals and deposits you have done today. Or I also want to insert data into some other table. So you have certain complex business rules, and that is implemented using DML triggers. Okay. So that is what is triggers. Then views is basically an option for me to see the data in a customized manner. Select statement, you can only select what columns you want to see. But when you talk about views, views are a mechanism to hide other data that is not relevant to the user. Like if I'm a branch manager of one branch, I don't need to see the data of another branch. So therefore, it is hidden. So there we create views on top of table. So views are also select statement only or query alone, but this query is pre-implemented. So when you execute a view, the view will give you a customized data and the data will be secure and you will not be seeing all of the data from the table. This is more for the end user. And then we will also be talking about indexed views. So there are views which can be indexed. So we'll talk a little bit about index and talk about indexed views. This is the coverage that we are looking at. So in 22 hours. So at the end of 22 hours, you will understand how to operate with SQL Server. You will understand how to create tables, how to create certain structures like keys, constraints, or business rule implementation, how to use data type, etc. Then we will look at how to insert, update, and delete data, how to write different types of queries, starting from basic query to complex queries. Certain specific features are not going to be mentioned in the basic SQL Server. Those features will be taken up in advanced SQL Server class, like for example, common table expression or hierarchy ID. So there are different options that are there. Those will be taken. So those are features which are used along with query, but those are a little advanced features. So initially we will not be covering them. So this is the coverage that we have in the class, in our training. Now, before we start with the SQL Server's logical architecture, we have to see how the data flows in business so that you have an idea where you are going to be. If you are going to be a developer, what are you going to be doing? So for that, we will move on to, I will share another document. Okay. So here we are looking at how data flows in business. So initially, let us take an example of a store like Reliance Fresh store. And let us assume that the Reliance Fresh store is having many small branches, or we can call outlets. And these outlets are basically going to take data in the sales data. So when you go to the sales counter, sales data is going to be taken in. Let us assume that each sales counter is having an application, and this application, as you are purchasing, will enter data into either Excel, Notepad, or some DB. It can be any. It depends on how costly or how big a business is. If the business is big, then it will use relative databases or relational databases. If the business is small, they may use Excel, very small Notepad. Now we have variety of options to store data. So let us assume that the application is storing the data. So all of you have experience of going to a sales counter and adding the data. Now this data which is added in the sales counter is called OLTP data. OLTP data means online transaction processing data. Now, what does online transaction processing data do? As the operations are happening, it enters, it updates, or it deletes the data. Mainly, the data is operational. That means I don't use it for any analysis. It is operation. So a transaction that I do, the data is inserted. So let us look at the typical characteristics of this transactional data, which is also present in the system. The system is called online transaction processing system. The data is transactional. So the transactional data is heavily insert, update, and delete. So you purchase something, so something new, some new entries will be there. Suppose you have to modify the price of a product, you have to update. Suppose a product is not there in your store, you have to delete from the database. So either delete or archive. So you have this options of insert, update, and delete. Then the data should be present in a normalized format. That means the data should not have any duplication. That is what we mean by data should be present in normalized format. So we have different data formats. And we can see Excel is one format, Notepad is another format, and RDBMS. So Oracle will store in a different format, SQL will store in a different format. So it is possible that one store of the chain is storing in a different format, other store in a different format, and so on. So change different format data. Data is frequently changing. So this is the nature of the data. Then we model. Model is a tool. Modeling is a mechanism actually to represent the data in the business. Okay, so it is called here in this case because it is operational data. We use ER modeling, entity relationship modeling. Now, data may be dirty. That is also one possibility because here our main aim is what business should be done. I get the money and I sell a product, or vice versa. So I may also return the money or because the product is not working fine for me. Now, when this is happening, if the system is not working, I can't allow the customer to wait till the system works. So sometimes you may miss adding a data. Sometimes you may miss deleting a data. The customer has brought 6 products. Suddenly he feels that one product he does not want. You have already built, the billing is already done. Then that extra information is dirty. Dirty means what? That row, that purchase is actually not happened in the business, but it is present in the system. So that possibility is also there. Then we have duplicate entries. That possibility also happens. Sometimes 2 times entry happens. So this dirty data and duplicate entry could be more of a practical problem. Now, this data has to be useful. Remember, any business will put data inside because it has to be useful for its future analysis. So I have a store. I want to know how many people are buying sweet. Okay. How much the sweet sales have gone up. If it is a season like Diwali, Christmas, sweet sale will go up. So sweet sales, how much it has gone up, that we have to see. So for this, analysis has to be done. Now, analysis can be done. Very basic analysis, we'll see, can be done using OLTP databases. But for more advanced analysis, you require a system which is called OLAP, Online Analytical Processing System. Now, when you are analyzing the data, what is the nature of the data that you need to have? First nature is, first, what is the reason? Analytics. What kind of analysis? You may want to consolidate for last 5 years. How did I do? Right? Consolidation, that is called. You may also have prediction. Prediction is very, very easy nowadays. You have a lot of algorithms, artificial intelligence algorithms are there, which can predict. Like I want to predict next month, what will be the product which will be selling more? What kind of product will be selling more? So based on this predictive analysis, I'll purchase the product. So that is how I do the business. And the data here will always be in denormalized form. That means it will have a little more duplicates. Because here my focus is only querying. My focus is not updation. Updation happens, but very slight. More focus is querying. Then you have formats which are regularized. So I can't have one in Excel, one in Notepad, one in DB. I have to bring all the formats into one under one single format, uniform format. Then you have more queries than insert, update, delete, as I mentioned. And you have models, like how you model the data here. Model the data means you represent the data logically in the business. Here also you represent the data, but the modeling mechanism is different. If people are interested in cubes and analysis, you will see that. And here the data should be clean. There should be no dirty data and there should be no duplicate data. Why? Because if it is dirty data or duplicate data, when I do analysis, the analysis will be wrong. And wrong analysis will lead to wrong conclusion, which will lead to my action, which is going to be wrong. So therefore, as a business, as business, I want this analytical data to be as accurate as possible. So therefore, clean data is necessity and non-duplicate. Now, moving data from transactional system to analytical system. This is done through a tool called ETL, which takes care of all the changes that are required. For example, change in data format, change in data type, removing duplicates, removing dirty data, changing the format to denormalized data. All this is done by the ETL tool. And then finally, all the data analysis and extraction is done finally for reporting. So reporting is very important. Reporting also, there is a tool that is available in different places, like Microsoft has a different reporting tool, on-premise, off-premise. Now, the basic movement of data in the business is remaining in this manner broadly. The only difference is whether the services that are moving the data are in-premise, on-premise, or off-premise. Like if I look at SQL Server, you have SQL Server database, you have SSIS, which is an ETL tool. We have SSRS reporting, SSAS is analytical tool. The same, this is on-premise. Off-premise, on the cloud, you have tools like SQL Azure. You have tools like ADF and ADB, which will do the work of ETL. And you also have analytical tool, Synapse, right? That's an analytical tool. And you have reporting tools like Power BI, which can do some basic analysis. So this is how you have different tools for managing or handling data of businesses. With this, we close this demo session. Before we go away, I would like to point out, just give me a minute. I will copy a link and I'm going to post that link. So please fill this link if you are interested in this program or any of the programs by Go Online Training. So this program specifically and payment, etc., so that you can continue. So right now we are in the demo sessions. So for some time, the demo session continues. After that, the actual session, when it starts, it will have the way we go, the way we have already discussed. So people who are interested in this session can pick this up. Before closing, I would like to know if there's any questions the participants have. So you can go ahead.
Sir, for how many days are we gonna have this demo session?
Madhav, I think up to 1st of May.
Okay, thank you.
From 1st of May we will start because we are planning at 1 month session. So May full 1 month, you will have the one basic training complete.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Any other question? Yes, Balaji. Yeah, Balaji, I enrolled in Power BI. I'm in. Okay. So what is the question you have for me? Balaji? Okay, so you will not be able to attend or you will be able to attend. What is the question, Balaji? Okay, I think Balaji is not having. Anybody else who have questions?
So not related to this class, I just have one more question. Do you guys provide SSAS classes too, like any ongoing SSAS classes right now?
You can check with Madhav. He will give
Okay.
you the information. You're looking for online classes?
Like a live session like this one?
Live session. Okay. You check with Madhav. He will get to you. Okay. So yes, sorry, Balaji, I am eligible for this class without paying fees. That I think, yeah, I am enrolled to Power BI. That you check with Madhav. I think this is a separate course. So yeah, Madhav, some question is there. Balaji is asked. He's enrolled for Power BI. So he is asking whether he is eligible for fee. So Balaji, you talk to Madhav later. He will let you know. Any other question related to content or how the session is going to be? So please fill in the URL which Madhav is sending. And I have also sent for those who are interested in this training and want to continue. So the demo sessions will go for this month. From the next month onwards, we will be starting the actual sessions. Yeah, please fill the information that you have. Okay, so this session is different. This is basic SQL Server session. So this is a prerequisite for anybody who wants to enter into data science, do anything related to data. This is a prerequisite because you should know one relational database management system. And from Microsoft side, it is SQL Server. Is Ashwini or Balaji or Dipti and Shubham, any other questions? Let me know. Yes, Madhav, should we close for today? Yes. Okay. So it is closed. So the demo sessions will be on for this week, next week. So there are no questions from Ashwini or Deepthi or. Yes. So Madhav, can we close?